All right, so we're gonna rank the JoJos, the protagonists, each one of them with the JoJo from best to worst.
So we're going to start off this list with a pretty uncontroversial placement. At the bottom, the worst JoJo.
It's not Jonathan.
It's Jodio.
Yeah, he's actually a sociopath. This kid committed arson, like his brother was getting bullied. He literally lit a school bus on fire.
Yeah, and the fact that part 9, there's only 23 chapters. We really haven't gotten to know him that well. And, so far he doesn't have that much of a personality.
And he sells drugs.
The other people in his drug group have more personality than Jodio so far, but
however, he does have potential, but we'll have to wait and see.
He does, but he kind of seems like a sociopath, so who knows?
As expected, we're gonna have in the 8th spot Jonathan Joestar. Now, granted, he is the first JoJo, but as you all know, he is vanilla ice. He just doesn't compare to his descendants, if you will, and even his alternate universe counterparts and their descendants. But he's a solid guy. It's better than Jodio because he's a gentleman, a true Brit.
Yeah, and it's just we all know part 1 as a whole is kind of the most vanilla JoJo part, and it just reflects in Jonathan. Araki kind of just made him. He made Dio, who was pure evil, so he just made Jonathan pure good. Like, he's an upstanding guy, the most upstanding guy in JoJo. He's a good character. We do like him, but he's just not up there with the other JoJos later in the series, when the series got more bizarre. After Jonathan, in the 7th spot, we got maybe a little controversial because the part's pretty popular, but we have Gappy, because we were thinking about part 8, and most of the stuff that makes part 8 good doesn't really have to deal with the villain or the JoJo or even the Joe Bros. We're thinking
it's the location and some of the stands.
Gappy, he's better than Jodio and Jonathan. He does have some actual diverse personality traits, but the whole series is kind of just figuring out who he is.
He's like, why do I have 4 testicles?
Yeah, he's just not the best, because he has amnesia, so. But he does have a really cool stand, which also gives him some bonus points.
So for 6th place, we have the part 6 JoJo, Jolyne Cujoh. We're starting to see a little bit more personality, a little bit more aura, a little bit more badassness in a way. Pretty fire.
Yeah, it kind of gets honestly tough once you get past the first 3, because again, Jolyne does have I think much more of a personality than the previous 3 JoJos. She also is a badass. She becomes one a lot more towards the end. She does sacrifice herself for Emporio, but we're just thinking about the other JoJos in the series, and while Jolyne is a really good JoJo, she just doesn't quite stack up to the other one. For the 5th spot, the JoJo from part 5, Giorno. I know this is probably going to be a controversial decision for many of you. It feels like a lot of people either think Giorno is really cool or they think he's really lame. And we fall somewhere in the middle. We definitely think Giorno is really cool. He's kind of Dio's son.
And Jonathan.
Yeah, his cold-bloodedness is kind of cool to see coming from all the other JoJos in the series.
Being ruthless, stealing, joining the mafia. But to be honest, the side cast kind of carries him, especially Bruno. And also Giorno got a really cool stand in the end, which is why we're oh wow, Giorno's pretty cool. But then it's if you take away the surrounding cast and the stand, it's okay, you're just left with this the thief.
Yeah, he doesn't have a great amount of personality, and he kind of stays like a static character throughout, but his coolness vibe just really hard carries him up to the middle of the list.
I think you guys are going to start noticing a trend here, but the next on this list in 4th place we have Josuke. You know, he has really great hair. You know, part 4 Josuke, by the way. He actually has like more character, personality. He has some things going about him. His stand isn't the best, so you know, he kind of relies more on his like personality. Like his stand's not carrying him, you know, his greatness. And you know, he actually has like great friends and like more like social skills.
Yeah, Josuke is actually like one of the funnier JoJos. He does have a good personality. I feel like everybody, you know, you just watch part 4, you're just gonna like Josuke. His personality is not like the best out of all JoJos, but it's definitely up there. He has a cool stand. His coolness factor honestly is not that big compared to other JoJos. He does have
that one moment where he's like riding a motorcycle and he starts punching it and he flies over a baby and just looking at the baby.
Or when he like tells Kira to bring out his killer queen, like that's cool. He's just not in that true upper echelon of JoJo characters that we're gonna get to next.
He didn't even beat the main villain. However, man, he did put a lot of beatdowns, and he also has his own stand calling, which is like the most unique out of all the others.
Also, we're not gonna lie, the pose he hit at the very
that should have broke his back
in the anime, bro. I gotta take some points off of that. I'm not gonna lie. Also, the balls talk with Jotaro, like that's just. But you know, he's number 4. You know, he's in slightly above the mid-tier of JoJo characters. He has his moments still. You know, I'll never forget first time I ever introduced to him, he almost beats up Jotaro. So
yeah, Jotaro had to stop time. In third place, we have Johnny from Steel Ball Run.
This is where we really start to get into the JoJos that are just on a different level. No disrespect to 9 to 4th place, but this is where we start getting to the really good JoJos. Like Johnny is really just
he's his own person, unlike the other JoJos. Like some JoJos are just like they're stands and they're just badass and they fight, but that's really about it. No, this guy, he starts off crippled and he goes through a journey to walk, and he's like such a badass. And also like he's friends with Gyro and he can actually like balance with his like character. This guy, he's not like the people below him. Like we actually could tell what he thinks. You know, he isn't like perfect.
You know, his character development throughout part 7 is just great to see. And I think this should say something, like Gyro is probably the best JoBro in the series and just one of the best characters in the series in general, and he is able to match with him. You know, like we don't forget about Johnny because Gyro is there. So that should say something about how good of a character he is. You know, so he comes in at the 3rd spot partly because we only get one part to really witness his goatness.
Now he is in part 8, but he's basically saving his family, but he is impulsive. That's one flaw that he has. Now I'm sure you'll see the others on this list, you know, the ones above him might be impulsive or rude, but we're just gonna say this about John.
And also, I mean, we said the character development was great, but still at the beginning of part 7 he wasn't a super likable character. And at the number 2 spot, I mean, maybe a little controversial to fans. You know, I know a lot of people have him as the number 1, their favorite JoJo of all time, but we got Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph Joestar, you know, he's such a stud. You know, Caesar was roasting him saying, oh yes, you can't get any women. Well, guess what? He ends the part with a wife. And you know what? Josuke, he basically cheated on that same wife and created another JoJo. Basically, this guy has like 3 JoJos that generated because of him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think pretty much the whole JoJo fandom has the same experience. You know, we liked part 1, it was cool. We liked Jonathan, but we weren't quite sold on the series yet. And then we saw part 2, and part 2 in general is a really good part. But Joseph was like the main catalyst for making us truly love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, he's just such a great character. He's one of the few JoJos who like just straight up outshines his JoBro and his villain.
Yeah,
in the part.
He's like the smartest JoJo of all time. Like, he can predict what you're going to say.
And then he comes back for part 3, you know, one of 2 JoJos
trying to save his daughter
back-to-back
too.
parts. And he really is also a GOAT in part 3, because I mean, if you think, if he never went to get Jotaro out of jail, Dio would have just won.
And also, he's like really rich, and he was friends with Speedwagon. Like, dude, can you imagine affording a trip to go to like Egypt when there's like assassins coming after you and like your plane crash? Dude, this guy survived like multiple plane crashes in his lifetime. Like, bro, if I saw him on a plane, dude, it's gonna be like what, those recent airlines.
And then he's also in part 4 for a little bit.
A shell of his former glory.
Yeah, he's not as great, but yeah, he still helps out a little bit. But you know, he's a little senile, he's a little old. He lost all his muscle mass, basically, like wearing glasses and a hat, but he's still cool.
He didn't practice his hammam, but he adopted a child. And
Yeah.
it's like, this guy, out of all the JoJos, he like probably lived one of the longest.
Yeah.
Joseph is such a great guy. Anywho, next you're gonna say at number 1 we have Jotaro Kujo.
At number 1 we have Jotaro Kujo. Now, I know what you might say, you know, why is Joseph not at number 1? Jotaro's kind of boring, he doesn't have a personality. But you gotta look past part 3, which I don't know how many of you know, but the anime kind of made Jotaro have less of a personality. In the manga, he's more expressive, at least for the first half, but he's kind of like Giorno in part 3. He's not got the greatest personality, but he has a high cool factor. But then we just see him in part 4 and part 6.
Even in part 5, he's like guiding Koichi.
Yeah,
this guy's a stoic.
He's just the GOAT throughout multiple parts. Like part 4, even though Josuke is the main JoJo, Jotaro is there.
He saves the day.
He's literally the leader. He is the one that kind of defeats Kira in the end. And then part 6, he comes in and saves everybody from Pucci. He even could have beat Pucci.
Yeah, if it weren't for Jolyne, like,
Yeah.
man. And listen, this guy, he has like a degree in like biology, like a doctorate in biology, and he even discovered a like starfish. This guy, he's really good, and he's a legitimate JoJo.
You know, maybe his personality factor is not all the way up there, but his goatness factor is number 1.
And it's like, let's think about it. When you think about JoJo stands, his stand is the one that you're gonna think of, like Star Platinum. He is the one who made aura relevant.
Yes.
That word aura, not aura, but aura.
Like, bro, when he stopped time against Dio, aura.
Dude, when he twitched his finger and stopped time, Jotaro was like, "What the heck?" Dude, he was such a great character that even Pucci literally had to read his memories just so that he can get the Made in Heaven plan.
Yes, bro, dude. When the gang is fighting against Kira, trying to make him not push the button, they're all in a rush. He manages to stop time, but he still takes time to thank Koichi for being a reliable guy.
And then hit him.
Like, bro, that is so much aura for me.
Bro, it's even 3 seconds, bro. Like, come on.
Okay, so that is our video ranking all of the Joestars in the series. Main Joestars in the series from worst to best. Comment, you know, your ranking. If we got anything wrong, like the video and subscribe.